Recording. But now, weekly recording catch up. There's a recording, but I don't know if I've uploaded it. I don't know if I've uploaded it, but I'm going to check. Now, testing and debugging, this is something that you're going to be facing over and over again. Today, we're not going to do we are going to reuse a project that is already made. And in that project, maybe in the afternoon, we are going to see how to apply testing, how to write unit testing here and there. But some of the things you are not required to be writing testing in every project, actually. You are not be required to write, to be writing testing everywhere. No. Actually, that's an entire module which is in software testing. So if you wanted to specialize in software testing, we have a software testing module, but now we are in Mern. We are not supposed to venture deeply into this. If you ask me, you people already know how to debug. The fact that you know where the error is, you see, the fact that you know how to come out from an error to something that is already done, that's good. Like I said, not every project needs unit testing. Not every project needs integration testing. I've been writing code with you people. We have been debugging, but I've not been writing tests. So it's not a must, but it's something that is a skill that you have to learn. Not everything that you are learning out there is you're supposed to implement everywhere. No. Take a look. You have been learning things since you were born. Have you been implementing everything? No, you have not been implementing. So, same case. You learn, don't implement everything that you learn. You just make it be a lesson that you learn. You have that skill. We're going to get back to the hands later on. Now, we have a lot to cover. But most of the time you're going to be seeing, even the AI, they tend to use console log a lot for debugging, a lot, console log, just to make sure that it brings out the verbosity of the error, to make sure that we expand it and see deeper into it and the cause of it. That's why we write a lot of console logs. This is one thing that you're supposed to remember. Testing, not so much debugging always. You're going to be sitting down for 20 minutes writing code, then spending the rest of 4 hours debugging. Strike a difference between debugging and testing. Testing is the process of systematically checking whether an application behaves as expected and meets the requirement. We're going to see how to do this. Sometimes you write code for testing, mostly applies to the backend developer. For those who want to become backend developers, testing applies to backend developers a lot. Because you don't have an interface. Not every project that you are building is a CRUD operation that requires Postman. No. For example, you're writing a function. That function doesn't require Postman for testing. It requires a unit test, integration test, end-to-end testing, for you to be able to actually say, okay, let us build the behavior before we ship it to production. So you write something because, as you can see, the definition, testing is the process of systematically checking whether the application behaves as expected and meets the requirement. So you're expecting this function to perform this and this. So you're writing a test. When you write that test and that test checks out, that function works automatically. So that is what we call testing. Then debugging is something else. It's the process of identifying, isolating, and fixing issues. Sometimes you have to reproduce the bug. For those who don't know why we are always saying debugging or bugging, the word bug, I was following a certain history, and I was saying that, I don't know, it was the first computer that was built, I don't know which year, but there was a bug in the system, literally a bug, an animal bug was in the system, preventing the system from working. So when they improved it, the system started working again. So they say there's a bug in the system. Not a bug for anti-bug, no, a bug like the parasite. You see? What kind of issues this system update are being applied in the background, whatever, man. Now, that is why bugs are up today, they're still called bugs. Remember, you have to strike a difference between testing and debugging. Today's class is not going to be long. Don't worry. When it comes to writing tests, you're going to be seeing how to work with jest. We have another one called, we have so many that I've not mentioned here. But for me, I've written test cases a lot. Debugging, of course, that is obvious. But testing, I've been writing testing for a very long time. And that's why sometimes you have a headache. That is where you doubt your ability to actually be a software engineer because things are not going to work. Now, let me bring in a certain presentation right here. Testing and debugging. I didn't want to bring this presentation, but anyway, here we are. Here we are. Now, I'm not a presentation guy. This is week 6, and well, we are not going to be coding a lot. We are going to be learning concepts. Yeah. Even in a math class, you are not writing maths every day. You're learning concepts. There's no learning like writing. Every time you sing mathematics, you bring out your calculator, you bring out your math mind. No, not every day. Sometimes you just have to write notes. Even if you hear programming and coding, not every day is about coding. No. Sometimes it's just about understanding concepts. Now, testing, like I said, is a systematically process of writing test cases that you want the software to mimic, like you want expected outputs for those software. For example, you're trying to test the login functionality. So you write a function for login, but then again, you come and write a test case for that, such that you inject a dummy email, dummy password. Then you see if it is going to pass the case. If it is going to pass, then well and good. Before you even got there, when you go to these coding interviews, for example, lit code. For example, you're dealing with the valid palindrome. Uh, for example, you're dealing with the valid palindrome, sorry. This is where you write your code, then you have test cases. For example, this example 1, example 2, example 3. So when it passes the test cases, then the function works. When it passes the functionality that you are writing, what you're saying is that the test 1, test 2, and test 3, they have passed everything. You see, you don't know exactly what this function is going to do, but when you read this and implement the code base for that, and then run the test cases, you're going to see the test results and see, okay, yeah, I've passed all the test cases. So you check it, then you can submit it. Not all the code that you're going to be writing in your life, you have to submit, like it has to run. I was seeing somebody saying, show us how it runs. No, not every code you're going to write you're going to run it on the terminal and see, okay, this is hello world. This is how I can be able to have an interface. No, 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 no. You're an upcoming web developer, but not everything you need an interface to view. For example, you are building a search functionality whereby people are going to be searching something there and there, being seeing, okay, this is working. You're not supposed to have an interface for that. Let's say I'm building something on the back end, then I want forcefully bring the front end. No. Before I go to the front end, let me test if it works. So if the test case works, if the test case passes, which means this system works, now I am confidently sure that it's going to pass to the next step. Yeah, I'm confidently sure that it's going to pass to the next step. So you need to understand this logics so that it can be able to help you while you're learning to become a software engineer. Like I said, I repeat, not every function that you write, you have to pass it through Postman. You have to run it through the terminal and see this is a hello world, this is how it works, and so on. No, 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 no. We are going to see all of that today, but mostly it's going to be in the afternoon. I'm going to share the slide after. Just remind me. Now, we have types of testing. Like I said, we have unit test, integration test, end-to-end test, and the manual one, which is exploratory. Now, the unit test is the most common one. because you write tests that are single out functions and components that you want to test in isolation. You see? So I'll give you an example there. For example, you're trying to test that function which is called calculate fine, and then for something like overdue in a library app. Today we are going to do a library management system. I have the system already done. We are going to be using that in the afternoon for what we call for now hands-on testing and bringing in of the what we call the testing now. We have integration testing, which is behavior between multiple units. You have in uh, multiple unit tests, but you want to do integration testing. For example, the functionality for logging in, functionality for fetching books, they're all. So login, you do unit test. Fetching books from an API, you do unit test because it's a unit by itself. But then, how do they communicate the two of them? So you do integration testing. The end-to-end testing is simulate full user journey. So you start from here. We want to see how the user flows from start to end of the application. You simulate everything. So that is end-to-end testing. Then we have the usual one, which is manual testing. So you check the UI if it displays like you see you have written something, then how do you make sure that it works? So you do it yourself. Like you go there, see if the admin works. You go there, see if you can be able to issue a book. You go there and do this and this. You see, that is now what we call manual testing. We don't have automatic testing, by the way. Now, what to test in Mern, basically? You need to understand what to test in Mern because we are dealing with Mern. Okay, what have you learned so far? We have started with MongoDB. We went to Express, then Vite with React. We went to WebSockets. We have done authentication authorization. We have done a lot of things. Majorly, we have done everything to do with the Mern. What we are doing right now is additional knowledge from Socket.io to now testing. That is additional knowledge. By now, you are a full stack developer who can build something in Mern. What you are just adding right now is additional knowledge. So now, as you can see here, we have different test cases for front end. We have different test cases for back end. Please understand that. So for the front end measure, you can see how you click a button and a form submits. Maybe correct data display from API calls, UI state changes or state hooks and so on. You have responsiveness across device. For example, talking about responsiveness, am I building a web application that is going to be uh, working on all screens? The user interface that is going to marry all screens, whether small or big, you're supposed to understand that is part of testing. Most of the time you test visually by seeing how it works. Then you tweak as you progress. But at times you're going to find like backend, you don't have to see something working. But for example, you see API route behavior. Is it failing or succeeding? Authentication authorization middlewares. You test them. You see? Then data validation, error handling, you have been doing it for the longest. The try catch block and everything. Then integration testing with external services. For example, we want to bring in something like MongoDB, which is an external service, or we want to bring in another something called, let's say we are testing using a third-party API, let's say OpenAI or WhatsApp API or Telegram API. We are testing that, integration testing. For the database, very simple. Just make sure that there's concurrency, correct data storage, we have schema validation and everything. Like everything is square. That's why for you to prevent much debugging, the reason why we prevent debugging, hours of debugging, is to write test cases. Okay, if you don't want to write test cases, please write professional code. Okay, you're going to say I'm vibe coding. AI is not perfect. AI is not perfect. Actually, I've seen AI at the fullest point, like it is going to hallucinate, regardless of the prompt that you're going to give it. It's going to give you gibberish code. Yeah, I've seen that a lot, a lot. I've seen that a lot, especially for those who are using the AI services that you're not paying for, the free AI services. You're going to be seeing a lot of in Kenya say majab. So now, don't think that AI is there to save you. Actually, no, 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 no. AI is just an assistant. So if you give it gibberish, it's going to output gibberish. So make sure I'm here drinking porridge. Make sure that you monitor what you're doing. That's what I am telling you. Understand the concepts, understand the basic concepts. Make sure you write professional code. You see, go and check your AI if it is coding. Tell me if it is writing the try-catch blocks. Just tell me if it is giving you the try-catch block. Most of the time, it's not going to give you, even if you pay for it. But here we are saying that the best way, as you have been saying for me, when I see we are going to have a failure here, I write a try-catch block to make sure that I do proper error handling. Error handling is the best thing that you can do to avoid debugging. Or even if you're going to be debugging, you're going to see exactly where the issue is. Have you tried to debug and see there's error in line 14 and in line 14 is an empty line? Have you wondered that what is happening? So the compiler is not wrong. The editor is not wrong to tell you line 14, but because you didn't do proper error handling, that is why you get those funny errors that you're wondering now, what the heck is happening? Now, in terms of socket IO, just make sure you understand the concepts, yes. Then you apply those concepts to write professional coding. That is the bottom line. Even if I come here and preach to you about testing and debugging, sometimes syntax error, you're going to get syntax error. For example, for me, I usually get like spell checks. I misspell things, then I wonder, what have I done? I know myself. May I know my weakness. When I start typing faster, I usually like mistype other things like typos. I give a lot of typos on the front on the code base. Now, that is testing. We have talked about testing. Testing is just, we're going to see all about that. Remember, our class today is not about coding. Let us just understand the concepts. Then I'm going to point in on a few tools that you're going to be using. Third-party tools basically to help your testing phase become smooth. So the common issues that we face are in terms of just debugging. Like I said, debugging is just about fixing code, by the way. As you can see here, the definition is a systematical problem-solving process. Do you remember me talking about problem solving? Do you remember that? Don't become a software engineer by just writing code. No. Think it through first, then debug. So, systematic problem-solving process where you learn to think like the bug that you have just written. It involves understanding why something is breaking and how to isolate it, reproduce it, and make sure that you resolve it if you want to. Sometimes the bug is not the bug, it's a functionality, it's a feature. You have seen these movies whereby somebody saying it is not a bug, it's a feature, unless you interpret it otherwise. Sometimes a bug is a feature that you're writing or inventing. That's why you're supposed to sit down, think, learn why it's happening. Why is that happening? So that next time when you hit that process, you know exactly what is happening. For example, those people are struggling with Tailwind version 4. Learn from it. Stop escaping the process. Sooner or later, 3.4 and below are going to be deprecated. You're going to be relying on Tailwind version 4 and above. And then soon you're going to be having version 5. Version 4 is stubborn for you because you don't want to sit down, understand why it's happening, what you're supposed to do. Go through the process. If you need to, you can abstract these commands. Do you know what command abstraction is? Like you abstract this command so that next time you just, instead of spending 10 minutes trying to understand what to do about LN version 4, sit down, spend 1 hour, do research, make sure that next time when it comes, you have the opportunity to make sure that you do that thing in 1 minute. So you do abstraction. Sometimes you just build your own components. Write components, then you keep reusing it in every way that you're doing. For example, you have created the best login. You spend time and hours creating the best login, the UI and the code base for the backend. Next time, instead of doing it over again, do just lift the code, bring and copy paste there. You save time. That's why you see some of us, we spin projects so fast. Why? Because we have our own tools that we have saved somewhere. So if you want to look for the best testing scenario, I have already there. Just lift it, slap it inside my code base. That's why when you're building a house, the, you have a ready-made stone, a ready-made cement, you have the paint already there. So they're already done. These are components. What you just need to assemble them, assemble them. You don't have to manufacture everything. You don't have to sit down and manufacture the code base. No. You have other code bases that are working already. Lift them up, sub them there. Okay. Later on, just find me in your own time, maybe in a catch-up session. I'm going to tell you or show you how you can able to write a whole code base and have it like a component that you can able to shift. Okay, before you even continue, let me even show you what I'm talking about. So last year, when I was spending time, this is part of the lesson, by the way. I'm not veering off the class. I'm not veering off. I'm just trying to show you how to make sure that debugging doesn't become an issue. So when I was spending time building this engine, let me show you. So for example, this is an editor. All the code bases are private, by the way. You see, the last time I pushed version was a year ago, almost a year ago. Now, let's say, for example, I want to deal with animation, right? So let us take a look at animation. I'm going to show, this is pure Rust. For those who don't understand, this is Rust programming, one of the, what do you say, programming languages that are going to make you give up early in your life. Now, but don't worry, it's easy. Now, when you come, this is like package.json file. I want you to take a look at where? Here. Are you seeing line 20? So this is a dependency, but this dependency I already have it. So I just build it where? Let me show you. I3M core. So instead of bringing it out there, I just like align it and make sure that it's working there. When I go to I3M core, you're going to find something else. For example, I3M code derive, you have it there alongside other dependencies that are out there. So instead of me going and every time I want to manufacture, for example, right now, if I want to do animation, I just need to bring this guy. I'll just need to bring this guy called I3M animation. Then I'm going to have the entire animation toolkit fully packaged with everything that I need because they are interconnected. You see? For example, I want to do something about sound. I just bring this guy. This guy is connected to who? Connected to Ethereum core, connected to Ethereum math, Ethereum resource. All of them are here. So I just need to lift this kind of piece of software that I've written here. Then I'm going to reuse it entirely. Let me show you. The code base is huge, like immensely huge. The code base is immensely huge. Some of the code base are like 5,000 lines. Don't worry where I wrote those things, but they are huge. For example, bash, the serial bash, context. I'm not here in the business of scaring you, by the way. Don't be afraid of me. I'm not here to intimidate you. I'm just trying to show you like how you can be a listener. You see, this is just a pure Rust. Now, let us exit that. So anytime I want to use that in a gaming, I don't need to go and find them out there. I already have them. So the point is, let's bring that one out. So Control F5. Now, The common issues that we normally experience is off by one error. So common in loops or arrays indexing. So or array indexing. So where a boundary condition is missed. So this one is going to be a catastrophic failure because you're going to be taking a certain loop that normally is going to confuse you. Then we have the state hook mismatching. For example, front-end and back-end states getting out of sync, leading to unexpected UI behavior. You are mismatching the state hooks. Async timing bugs. Remember, we've been using asynchronous operations, so we have async timing bugs. So operations completing in unexpected order. For example, I want for us to be able to fetch data from the database. After fetching is successful, then we can move to the next step. But I'm writing an asynchronous operation whereby instead of waiting for us to finish fetching data from the database, I'm jumping to the conclusion to proceed to something else instead of waiting for us to complete there. So we are going to have something like that. Then we have run links, for example, you give normal users authorization to admin access and so on. You see, for example, people will normally use admin as password and username for entering admin sites. That's a vulnerability. That's why if you write good testing, you're going to be having security inside your application. These are the common issues. Now, how about debugging techniques? Console log is one of the favorite for everybody, even the AI that you think they are smarter. Console log is one of the common. Actually, it's not unique, it's common. Go and tell go and tell your AI that I'm experiencing this error, then it's going to try and solve the first time, the second time. The third time it's going to say, now the issue is persisting. Let us now write console logs. It's going to write like 50 of them inside one file, just to make sure that it's trying to reproduce the error. So this one is the first line of defense. You just write a message to make sure that if we have a failure, just produce this message. Another way, another technique that you're supposed to know, because this is about debugging. Testing you've already done. We are going to go back to testing later on. But debugging is what pains people. You have seen me going back to browser console. When you go to console logs for the browser, that's where you're going to find the UI area to make sure that you have your testing environment. How about the backend? The backend, if you want to test the API endpoints, you go for Postman, you have Tata client and so on. You just go out there and test. Also, you have VS Code debugger. You set breakpoints, checkpoints, and everything just to make sure that you test your code base all through, like you make sure you debug whenever you have issues. Then API header inspections. This is mostly on the GWT authorization sectors. Okay, I'm talking about a lot of gibberish, but you people understand this. Console logs, browser, this one. The first three are the most common ones. Forget about philosophy. It's not doesn't matter by the way. Just philosophy. Now, testing and debugging in the stack. Now, testing and debugging, remember this is what I'm telling you. So each layer of the Mern stack presents unique opportunities of testing and debugging. So it is basically tailored to its specific responsibilities. You cannot use the testing tools for the front end, the exact testing tool you're going to use them on the back end. It's not possible. So when I talk about front end, which is Vi, Tailwind, React, and everything, unit test, as you can see, you do individual React components. The individual React components, you might not think that that is the testing, but whenever you encounter any issue, you know exactly where the issue is. You don't go there and find line 14, and line 14 is empty, you don't have any code, and then the system is telling you line 14, there's an error in line 14. So for you to avoid that, like I told you, write responsible code, professional code. That's why in React, just write individual React components. You write utility functions. For example, you write particular function, like for example, date formatters. Date is something that people normally struggle with. What is the good format? There's no good format. Just understand what is the best format that you can able to use. That is part of unit testing. Unit testing, remember, if it is login, you build a component for login. If it is register, a component for, don't put them in one file. No, no, no. Put them in units, units. Even in apartment, you have units. People don't live in a hall. They live in units, apartment units. So you pull them in units so that you can be able to write secure code bases. How about integration? So components interact with the, for example, with the Redux store or make components that are making API calls. So you can be able to make sure that login is able to communicate with the register, such that if I'm a new user and I'm trying to log in, I'm going to be redirected to go straight to register. They are communicating. So integration testing, remember, you take one unit and another unit, then you try to make sure that they are communicating together. Or you can take a whole unit and make sure it communicates with the third party. So end to end, you simulate a flow for the user to start all the way to the end. I've talked about that. That's a simulation of a user who's flowing when you get to an application until the end. Now that is for the front end. How about the back end? Something that you don't see every day. You have been seeing me writing controller logic a lot. Then you're wondering, why I do that? Why is it important? The controller logic, that is where I want the entire logic to be. I have utility functions, I have database, services, methods. So all of these are very important to make sure that I try to curb the process of debugging. When you write proper code bases, sometimes you write codes that you think are not writing test. We have been writing test cases since we started. That's why you separate things. It is going to be easy to test when you write test cases if there's need to be. Remember, it's not a must. It's not a must. And it is easy for you to debug. You see? You have integration testing. So API routes, just like integration test in the front end. So integration test API routes. So for example, a post request to books successfully creating a book in the database. So the route is going to take it from the route all the way to the database. So two layers. You have the API route and the database route. The database API route and the database layer. So integration one, the API route is the unit for API and the database is another unit. So they integrate. Security check. So thoroughly check GWT validation. We have Clark roles. If you're using Clark authentication, basically, and put sanitization, input sanitization. One of the best things that I've been doing in terms of input sanitization is streaming. You have been seeing me talking about streaming. You trim user data, user input to make sure that you don't have white spaces. That's one of the ways to do sanitization for the inputs. So when you keep writing this kind of code bases, like I told you, you don't need to write test cases because everything is going to be working. Remember, test cases are not a requirement for your system to work, but when you write responsible code, you're going to avoid all this process because at the end of the day, the point of writing test cases is make sure that in case we have a fallback, we know exactly where to find an issue. If you're not confident with your code base, that's why you write test cases. So by default, when you write code, responsible code, smart code, by default, you're going to be putting like heavy armor inside that code such that all the time it's going to work, nobody's going to breach you. We have socket testing for those dealing with socket IO. Just making sure that real-time communication is happening. Correctly emission of information is happening. Anyway, so some code snippets as we move along. Now, GWT, for example, I'm just trying to show you one of the things that you're supposed to understand here. So these snippets highlight key areas where testing and debugging are critical. Now, you see, this is just an example. Focus on the logic and potential point of failure. So for example, here we have a JWT middleware. Of course, we know that when you're doing the middleware, you have three parameters: the request, response, and next. So here we are saying that we are creating a token. How do we create a token? We deal that from the authorization point, we split it and take the second index as the token, because the first index is normally the bearer. So if the token is not there, we return a status code for one. We have a try catch block here whereby we say we verify that token. How do we verify? We just do user verify and so on. You see? But you're going to see that later, why the testing focus is supposed to be actually angled there. Then we say request user, then we go to the next. For the catch, we just return that. So the testing focus here. So verify valid tokens grant access. Invalid tokens are rejected. You see, when you just do this layer, if token is not there, give for one. And then we come here and say, if the token is not verified, if the token is not verified, we have a try catch block. The catch block is where we have the invalid tokens. So the try catch here is where our test case lies. You can see some people chatting here. Yeah, the session is being recorded. So that is the test case. We have been writing test cases. That's why right now you're realizing that today's not a coding session. Why? Because all along we have been doing the things that, okay, for me, I'm used to it. That's why I bring them to my code bases. Even if the AI is not going to give me, I know it's supposed to be here because I've done it for a while. So it becomes muscle memory. Remember, testing and debugging is constant. Just like people are floating. Floating is constant. Kenyans, Kuinama is constant for those who are comrades. So now, digress into that topic, but let's go back to class. Testing and debugging should be constant. Why? When writing your code, write your battle-tested code base, such that you know that this code is going to work regardless of what. Another person will write the code, okay, not another, but somebody who is just starting out is going to write this code base this way, exactly this way, split, and then you're going to skip this process, the if token. You're going to remove the try catch in the first place. So which means whenever you're going to face an issue, you don't know what the issue is. For example, here, if the token is invalid, I know the status code is 403. So I know exactly where the issue is. Debugging becomes easy and swift. That is on the JWT. How about the admin? When you're dealing with admin only route, how do you guard it? Of course, we know this one is one of the middlewares because the point of the middleware is to make sure that there are security guards standing at the door to make sure that the process here is well checked. You see? And for information of my degree in campus was cybersecurity. So you see where I'm going. My degree in Kabarak University was cybersecurity. And I was good at it, but don't worry. Don't think that I'm not good, but I'm seeing some people talking about WASP. I don't want to digress into that topic, but let us continue. Now, as you can see here, we're saying if the user role is not admin, return status code message admin only. So you give that alert to the user that you're not admin. So get out of here. So the testing focus here that you're talking about is what? So ensure only user role is admin can proceed. Others are blocked by error 403. This return, I'm using this return, you see, normally means what? I told you to go and research about status codes, categories. We have 200, we have 400, 500. Go and research about that. So we have been writing the testing focus. The point of testing is to make sure that the debugging process is swift and smooth. You don't spend 10 days debugging because your code you wrote the very uh, like untidy code. Now, the debugging socket race. Now, here was saying that we have an event called book issued, taking the data from the user and saying update UI data. So might fire before the state is hydrated. Somebody's worried. No, what does water come in this socket IO? Now let me explain. Some people are texting here. See, yeah. Now we are talking about here. This one highlights a common sync timing issue. A sync timing issue. Remember, I talked about a sync the other time for the one that I was talking here. Where is it? This one that I was talking about here called a sync issue. Here it is. Because it deals with the promises. When talk about asynchronous operation, this with promises. When this happens, this is going to happen. Now here we're saying that you're writing update UI must run before the component state is fully ready, leading to errors or inconsistent UI. So use log to track state hydration versus event firing order. I'm not going to explain that more. Now, this is just a closing reflection. Testing is mindset and methodology. Debugging is precision and patience. Yeah, patience. Underline the word patience. And I will underline the word patience because, hey, yeah, software engineering is going to test your patience. It is going to test your patience. Okay, let us proceed. Okay, let us proceed here. I think I got to the end. So this afternoon you're going to deal with this, but you are not done yet. So what you're going to do now is learn a few things here and there. Remember, I've been talking about, let me first of all disable this to avoid the. Now, I've been talking about testing, debugging, but Darren, what are you talking about, man? You're not understanding anything, man. Now, don't worry, got you covered. When it comes to testing and debugging, it should not be a hard thing, by the way, for you to understand. I've told you that console log is one of the things that we normally use a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. So in your front end, make sure you have three things. Your front end, make sure you have three things. You have unit test, you have units. I'm not saying testing, unit test, but I'm saying you're supposed to break down your man stack layer with associated test targets. Test cases or bugs always fall under certain categories. Make sure you have units on the front end, that is components. That is why you have components. Make sure you have integration whereby the components, which is the UI, interacts with the API behavior. Make sure you have the full user journey, which is end to end. Just have full journey simulation. On the back end, have units as well. These are controllers, utils, services, routes, models. These are units. These are the target areas for testing. Again, on the backend, have integration, whereby your route integrates with the DB and the authentication on the front end. That's how we integrate, by the way. Have the security and make sure that middlewares are there to make sure that you are guarding your system. Have environment file for your secrets. Now, I've shown you the code snippets that I want to show you. We don't have much to say about that because in the afternoon we're going to deal with what we call a code, and we are going to see how we are going to interact. But some people are going to say now, how about this thing called jest? What are they? Now, these resources, for example, we have jest. What is jest exactly? It is normally used for testing, by the way. It's a testing framework. But remember, you don't test everything. Don't test everything. Don't test everything. Only a few things are tested. So it's a JavaScript testing frameworks. It works on TypeScript, Babel, Node, React, Angular, Vue, and more. Go and go through this. Remember, not every project needs these testing frameworks. Some of the frameworks are already breached by cybersecurity because they know hackers, they know people who are going to use these things. So sometimes, for me, I don't prefer using third-party tools to make sure that I test my code bases. No, I don't need to do that. I told you about the try-catch block. That is very important. You see, we have a centralized error handling middleware. Remember, middleware is the security layer that you normally put there. We talked about another one, which is console log. I've already talked about that, dev environment. I want us, for example, allow me just to show you these code snippets that we have over here. This document is already in the LMS, by the way. It's already here. You're going to find it here. And you have content in the LMS as well. I don't want to jump into hands-on because when I jump into hands-on, I'm going to cover everything that I need to cover in the afternoon. So I want you in the afternoon, by the way. So this is how we test it, by the way. So you have testing library called npm test. This is how you run it. But let us start from start. Writing unit and integration test. Let me just take you through writing unit and integration test. So writing unit and integration test, for example, we are going to write unit tests for backend and front-end components, perform integration testing for API endpoints. But before we start there, what do you need to install? Because there's something that you need to install basically. So to install this testing environment, remember they are not a must for you to use in every project. No, you're going to make your project messy. And then you're going to fail how to use them because they are used in different design. So we have Jest, we have Supertest, and then testing library for React. You see? And then testing library Jest DOM. But as you can see, they are used only in the development and environment. When you are coding locally, but they are not going to be used in the production. Don't ever push testing on the production because you are pushing your weakness there. It's like going out of the house and saying, you see, people, this is what I do when I'm free. Now, we are going to be dealing with this in the afternoon, basically. We are going to be dealing with all of this in the afternoon, but my suffice for me just to show you. This is how you roll. This is how you roll, by the way. Bro. Okay. Now I'm about to answer this Q&A, but let us come to this. So you install this, then this is going, you're going to create this, so jest.config.js, whereby you're going to denote where you're going to be testing. So you're going to be testing everything in the root directory, basically, under the node environment. So after creating that, you need to create another file called just setup. Just like Tailwind, how does Tailwind work? Because you need this file config and the setup as well, whereby you import that, then you organize your files. Now, for the backend, you have a folder called test. So you're going to test all the user about everything about the user, you're going to test it. And on the front end as well, you're going to be doing that. Mhm. Okay, let us proceed. I was distracted somewhere here. So on the hands-on activity that we are going to do in the afternoon and so on, you're going to be seeing something like that. So you write a mock file that has mock data. For example, you're testing user authentication. For example, here I was saying backend test for user test.js. So if you are dealing with the test, make sure it is we have .test at the middle. If it is user.js, have the test. So user.test.js. Remember, test cases are repeat for the 100th time. It's not a must for you to write all of this. And make sure if you are writing them, don't allow them to go to GitHub or to go to your production. Because I'm going to say exactly how your APIs are. For example, this, okay, this is a target. I'm going to target this. Okay, so expected to one. Okay, So I understand exactly your nakedness for your code base. Test cases like display the nakedness of your code base. So you call the super test, you call the server and saying describe user API. So this is what you're going to test and saying, so it, so you describe it should create a new user. That's what you do. And dealing with the synchronous operation. Then you're going to say, okay, so for the cost, we are waiting for the request. So what kind of request are we waiting for? The post, the API user. And in that post, we are sending what? Name and email and password. After sending them, we are expecting status code 201, which is created successfully. You see? And then we're expecting a response to have a property which is name and John. Name, which is John. You see, that's what we're expecting. So if that is a success, we are good. When we run npm test, you're going to find out exactly if your code base. So we are testing this route, basically. That is what we are testing. We are testing if that route works. That is a unit that we are testing. How about on the front end? We want to run to make sure that this button works. So we test, okay, run this button with the text. So when you click it, so click me, and so on and so forth. So you're going to get something like that. So expect button element. This is where you tested the DOM now. You run that and so on. So it's just a basic, something basic that you're not supposed to stress about, like I told you. So there's a place whereby you can be able to inspect your server.js. So run this to be inspected with an inspector enabled. So basically, you're going to try to test this one, not in the terminal, but in this is what I'm talking about. The inspect. This is where I go every day when I do testing, by the way. When I do testing, I go there every day, every now and then. Error handling, like I told you, try catch. And then that's it, just it. We have super tests. These are just tools that they're going to help you, not me. They're going to help you. Because I told you for 1 million time now, they're not a must. Now, allow me to answer these few questions. Okay, now bring in your questions now, because our class today is not going to be long, by the way. It's just about testing. And testing have been doing it for the longest. Now you are realizing that you've been doing testing and writing our code to make sure that testing becomes easy, debugging becomes easy. Okay, I understand people, it's not under software testing. Software testing now they're specializing in becoming Q&A, quality assurance engineers. Let us just take a look at their content. Where is it? Yeah, this is how they do it. Their content is slick, by the way. Remember, their testing, software testing is different from man testing. Software testing covers every software. And not every software they use Jest, not every software they use super test. No, 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 no. No, no, they don't do that. You can see the fundamentals, the software testing lifecycle, so types of software testing, manual, like I tell you, but for us, we don't have automated testing unless we want to write workflows for testing. Static types. Of course, they have dynamic black box testing. I did that when I was doing a module. I did it in campus called software engineering. I dealt with black box and so on. This is another whole new world, by the way. So it is not the same as software testing for these people because ours is anchored on Node.js. Now, I've answered that. Now, people are having issues submitting the assignment. Okay, we are done with the session today, but let me just take questions. Now, bring everything that you have on me. Any question, any query that you have not understood, because our class today is not long. Like I told you, we are now descend down the mountain. I told you from the start. It's not something that you are supposed to worry about. In fact, week 8, I don't know if you're going to have a class in week 8, but anyway, you're going to have because there's nothing to cover there. It's just a basic talking here and there, capstone, your skills, telling you how to do planning and everything. I've been talking about this forever. Any questions? Anything? How can I help you? Explain the ways of doing API calls on backend. Okay, many ways of doing API calls. API calls are just API calls. Like many ways of doing API calls. Let me understand your question. I'm going to go back to the so let us start. I'm going to go back to the assignment submission, but let me answer this question now. As far as Manstack goes, let me disable the anonymous. I want to see people who are asking me questions. Backend, there are several ways basically from what I've understood, to make API calls. So depending on the architecture that you're using, of course, there's so many ways. Now, there's a standard one that we have been using all along, which is for REST API using Express. That is via Express.js. You see? That is making API calls where it can be on the front end or to the database. On the front end side, as far as Manstack is concerned, we have Axios. But we're dealing with Axios, but there's another one called Fetch. There's another one called Fetch that I didn't want to have for us to work with because uh, doesn't actually work well most of the time. Yeah, third party one works well. Um, Another one is we can just do proxying. So this is just forwarding request to third party APIs, hiding API keys. That is what we mean by proxying. There's another one which I've been using for a while, which is called GraphQL. GraphQL is another one. Webhooks is another one. Then we have microservices, which is just internal API calling. We have a lot to talk about. Socket.io is another way, by the way, if you didn't know. Actually, some people might prefer using Socket.io instead of REST API because Socket.io is instant. Top, real time. If you want to do real time API, because most of you thought that when dealing with the Socket.io is just about chatting. No, 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 no. Socket.io is used for real time API calling. Real time, if you want to do real time API calling, just use Socket.io. It's going to be amazing. Actually, you can do that for CRUD operation. File API. We have so many ways of making API calls, by the way. I've mentioned just a few. I don't know what you're talking about. In my GitHub, you can just copy it. It's available, the public. Somebody is asking, browser routers, how do they work? No, a great question, by the way. So in Microsoft, basically, we are dealing with React a lot. So we use browser router in React. Let me first of all pose these questions so that I can be able to answer them slowly. So what is browser router entirely? Browser router, from my own opinion, we normally install React DOM, React Router DOM. So it's a component from React Router DOM library that enables navigation between different pages or routes. So in a React app, we are doing that without refreshing the whole page. So that is what it means. So that is it. But how do they work? Just navigation. Yeah, it's just about navigation. Uh, Answer another one. We have another question here. They're saying the project we are supposed to do, is it the one we pitched or the one we can do? Okay, if you pitched a project, but then you have another idea, no, you can just create a new project if you want to. You are not supposed to use the other one. The other one, you already do web development. You are not aware of Manstack. Right now, we know Manstack, so just do a new project if you want to. Okay, we do another one. Okay, if you could start programming again, what could you do different? Avoid YouTube tutorials at all cost. Avoid YouTube tutorials at all cost. I'll stick to documentation. Yeah, that's what I'll do different. YouTube tutorials are going to, hey, you're going to sit there for 2 hours, watch introduction to JavaScript. After you're done, you feel like you've done it, you know everything. Now go and start coding. Blank. Avoid YouTube tutorials. Actually, use YouTube tutorials for fixes. Okay, you've forgotten this, fix this. Yeah, you just go and watch. Actually, use YouTube tutorials just for inspiration for this and this. But programming is a process. Just make sure you understand the basics, programming paradigm, understand it. Before you learn any programming language, understand how programming works first. The types of programming language, the categories. If you're learning a programming, what do you want to use it for? Don't go learn programming language because you want to go there in a hackathon and brag. For me, I know how to code in Go. For me, I know how to code in Rust. No, it's not for show off. Learn to use it. Okay, for those people asking, I would like some help in submitting assignment and I want to submit it on GitHub. I'm going to get back to that. I'm not ignoring that question. I've not ticked it yet. Now, good morning, sir. For week 3, do we deploy the project also? You can do it or it's optional, by the way. It's optional. It's optional. The most important thing is assignment submission. Deployment is just a bonus for you. If I forgot to indicate that, sorry, but it's not a must. Difference between context, hooks, and utils. Isaac, you're pinning me with your question. You have been asking this question for a very long time, but let me just answer that today. Now, context hooks and utils, according to me. So utils, what are utils? These are just utility functions, by the way. So they are different. Two different tools used to manage logic. When I say logic, just programming in the essence. But they serve very different purposes, but they're not related. So they are not related, so you cannot strike a difference. But let me just give you context hooks. They are there to share global state or logic per se, but they are across many components without passing any prop manually at every level, by the way. So they're used in the authentication state, creating theme, like light theme, dark theme, socket connection, language locale setting, and everything. So how they work, they just use context. Just use context. Often they are up to the context provider. Or the other one, utility, just outside. Reusable helper function, by the way, to perform logic and so on. For like you just want this helper function to be used everywhere. So you just put them under utils. Very different. Yeah, and of course that is in React. Hey, the question can be a bit funny, but how do you know how the flow goes like after API routes, authentication? How do they flow? How do you know the flow? Now, when you are coding, essentially when you are entering a system, what do you expect first? You log in. After logging in, you now, that is the first step. Just open then you keep navigation. You keep the navigation for the user to follow. When you click here, you go to the dashboard. When you click here, you go to the home. When you click here, you go to the login. When you click here, you go to the user profile. You control the flow for the user. I don't want to click dashboard, then I'm taking to login. No, you control the flow. So you do that mostly in the app.jsx, by the way. But most of them, but make sure you do them in routes first, then you transfer them. You control the user flow such that you cannot access dashboard unless you're logged in. It's not a funny question, Linian. It's a very logical question, by the way. It's not a matter of how the flow goes after the pay routes. You see? But when building, I've just shown you the entire process. Most of the time, if you're building, start with the backend or the database. After you're done with the database, go to the backend. After the backend, go to the frontend. Why? You start with the schema whereby data is going to be stored. By the way, you're not going, let me just give this analogy. You are opening a bank account first, then put money there. Or you're opening a bank account, then you prepare to receive money. So that when you receive money, you put that in the bank account. You don't receive money, then prepare to receive money, then you open a bank account. The logic works like that. Just like a formal thing that, yeah, it's not funny by the way, but you're supposed to, in your laptop, open the lid, then press start, then computer boots up. Not the other way around. So it's a process. You're supposed to follow a process, logical process. I've disabled the Q&A so that I can answer the questions. Now, I can't access GitHub Classroom and my restriction. Now, Benjamin, you emailed me and told me that your restrictions have been lifted, but I don't know why you're still not able to access GitHub Classroom. I'm going to see about that later on. I'm going to see that later on. I saw your email though. Even if I need a reply, some of them I don't reply, but I read your emails. For those who are texting me on WhatsApp, DMing me for issues, WhatsApp is not official means of communication. So I'm going to, even the WhatsApp DMs from my friends, I don't reply them. I don't critique, I don't blue tick, I just don't reply because I'm not 24/7 on WhatsApp. I'm not 24/7 on WhatsApp. So I'm going to just leave it. You're going to think that I'm leaving you on red, but no. It is not an official means. That's why you read most of the emails, by the way. Is there a way to ship in or start a project very fast in a stable, scalable manner and can be used in many projects? So you're talking about templates. You can build your own templates, by the way. You can build your own templates. That's how you become a software engineer. Build your own solutions so that you can be able to solve your problems. If starting React is normally an issue for you, then build a template that every time you want to do it, you just pull that template and there it is. Template building is easy. Just go and learn how to do that. You learn every day. I'm going to answer those two questions that I've not answered, but let me take a look at Some people here, let me disable this as well so that I can be able to read. You see, you cannot read when people are streaming questions. Now, where was I? I've explained how do browser routers work. Okay, I've just explained that. What about project? When is the deadline? Now, for the final project, just make sure that at the end of week 8, you're done. So if I were you, I would have started earlier enough. That is called, Dominic, that is called road protection. Yeah, it's just a matter of, what do you call? You can use road protection or just use credentials. When you put a certain credential, I've done that in a certain week, by the way. I don't know if you went and took a look at that repo, but I did that. I explained you can be able to create credentials such that whenever I log in this credential, I'm going directly to the admin, not the normal interface. So there's a script that I wrote there that you can actually run on terminal directly and have that. Did you do both software? Yeah, yeah. Actually, I've done a lot, Vanessa. I've done cyber software, data engineering. Data engineering, I did it for Azure, AWS, GCP a bit. Cybersecurity, I did it in campus. I have a practicing certification for Google. I did their course, so I have a certification from them. Software engineering, I've done it. My project speaks for it, not just in PLP, but I've done it a lot. Now, just asking if this week's catch-up recording was uploaded last week's or this way and this week. Okay, I've not uploaded it. I think I forgot it. That day I was busy, but sorry, I'm going to upload it. Would you recommend the use of ready-to-use plugins, modules, as we did in some classes? Yeah, I'll recommend. But there's a problem to that because some of them are not secure enough, but just use them. We are not supposed to build everything for ourselves. Just use them. Accent. Now, I have a problem with my assignment. I usually get an email. No, forget about that. Forget about those emails that you're getting. I created that workflow to make sure that it auto-grades the assignment, but I made a mistake in terms of just creating it. So that's why every time you try to run the assignment or it's going to give you an email. So forgive me about that. But just submit your assignment. Forget about that email. Everything is okay. I trust you're doing well. I have lots of questions. Once I start hands-on again, but please, I hope we can email you or tag you in a group if we get stuck. If you tag me in the group, I'm going to reply, but if you DM me, I'm not going to. That's why I created WhatsApp for that. Not for DM, but for group interaction. Currently, I'm just passively listening. Okay. We have Dominic. Users User admin are able to log in the same by creating the different laws in the backend. So yeah, of course. I've answered that. I can't find my MongoDB community server after downloading and installing. Are we using Node.js for backend when creating clusters? When creating a cluster? Okay, I don't understand that. I've tried registering and inputting my password and creating a cluster in MongoDB Compass. Are you the one that I saw with the screenshot from MongoDB Compass on the group? I don't know. It says an error occurred while saving the connection password. Oh, okay, don't worry. If you watch the recording for this week, you're going to see that we actually deployed. Isaac Maura is astonished. What is the project deadline? Just make sure at the end of week 8 you're done. So start today. When I ask how many files are we creating for week 1 assignment? I think that is well detailed there. I've forgotten what kind of files, but they are detailed there. Does PLP has bug bounty program? Nope. They don't have. We don't have basically awesome. I'm feeling stuck during the session. I flow with you and understand most of the what we are coding, but when it comes to doing it solo, at my assignment, I feel blank. Okay. I believe you are taking my sessions as a tutorial, YouTube tutorial. That's why you're stuck, Anastasia. It's not funny, but it's a serious concern that you're supposed to change a strategy. Learn. Don't flow with me because for me, I'm not covering everything. I've already said that over and over again. I'm not covering everything. What I do, I provide a community whereby you can learn from your peers, number one. Number two, I inform you to do more research. To do more research, that's why I normally share an email beforehand with the resources and communication. You tend to understand more when you are using a documentation more than when you are watching a video or listening to somebody. You tend to learn more into that. You tend to learn more when you do research out of curiosity. So don't like I'm even afraid to start the start course. I think no, that is now imposter syndrome kicking in. Now just go and do research. Peruse through this documentation. If you peruse through this documentation, it's going to be an easy go for you. Uh-huh. Now let me allow people to raise up their hand. I get it that Talent 3 will be deprecated, but honestly, I have not figured out why. You see, I've given you over and over again and shown you how to use Talent version 4, but if people don't listen, that is clear by now because you tend to jump the process. I've shown you how to, but because when you go here, Talent version 4, you can see the exact process that you're supposed to go through. You see? This is Tailwind version 4. Actually, the default that is here. When you go to get started, just follow the documentation, just follow the docs. You see, we are dealing with Vite, not for CSS, not this one, not this one, not this one. We are dealing with Vite for React. Just make sure you follow this, install that, configure that, configure that. Go to index.css, add that. That is it. No tailwind.config file. No, 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 no. Just that's it. There's nothing to add, nothing to remove. Pure. Where do you choose final project? Just do any project pertaining Manstack. Yeah, just do any project pertaining Manstack. Have you heard the jokes about? I do not have that joke. How does Tailwind version 400 theme? No, Tailwind does not do theming, by the way. And I told who? Angela? I told Angela the other day in the catch up. Tailwind or CSS does not do theming. Remember back then in web development when I was talking about DOM? Now, Tailwind does not do theming, by the way. That is pure JavaScript. You see, styling is to make the UI beautiful, but not interactive. For interactiveness, that is why JavaScript comes in. You see, Tailwind does not do theming. Actually, I showed you. Let me just pull up that project again. Where is it? Content. You're talking about the level. Yeah, this one. I show you where I did theming, and you tell me if that is Tailwind. Exactly. This is the exact page that I was talking about. This is when we do theming. But for the components, actually I didn't use even Tailwind. I used this hero icons. This is just for icons. The state management. This is a exact file. Tell me where Tailwind is. Tailwind is for the button only. And actually is where? Here it is for the icons. It is not Tailwind, by the way. Just follow the entire process, please. Yeah, please use TypeScript at all cost. Use TypeScript at all cost. Use TypeScript at all cost. Actually, for me, I trust in TypeScript more than JavaScript. We will do pitching. Yeah, I do pitching for those who are selected. So do a good project for pitching. Thank you, Felix. Belated birthday. Do we choose a project for ourselves? Yeah, just choose a project for ourselves. I'm not going to give you a list. And please don't do a to-do list. That is embarrassing. By the way, when I see a to-do list, I'm going to say now, all along I've been talking about to-do list. Now, bring something that is amazing. Bring something that is amazing. Should I do the Git talk something or something? You see, don't rush in terms of development. Just go slowly. Go slowly. Go slowly to make sure that you have everything that you need. When you rush and you say else, is going to bring you, is going to install version 4 of Tailwind, but use version 3 in terms of configuration. Oh, this is Git talk for those who don't have. If you're struggling with Git commands, oh, the problem is solved. Angela will package all the repos. I think there are so many. I'll package all of them, especially for the catch up and my classes, and then I'm going to package in a document and send it to you people. I deployed my backend through Render and frontend through Netlify. Okay. If you're dealing with Render, don't deal with Netlify. Netlify is for static applications, not for the one that we normally do. Please use Vercel. Use Vercel at all cost. Use Vercel. And if you're deploying, use your GitHub account. Don't use, it is not going to allow you to use Manstack GitHub account, the one that you're dealing with the assignment. Use your GitHub account at all cost. It is not going to allow organization account at all cost. Yeah. The certificate between aligning with SDGs and us giving you the project ideas. Two different things. So make sure it aligns with the SDGs, but make sure you pick your own because we have unlimited list. Okay. We have unlimited. Let me bring up something that I was to give you. Where is it? Build your annex. If you want ideas from me, I know exactly where. Organization, of course, have restrictions. You cannot deploy using organization repos, organization accounts. Use your own GitHub account. And don't use Netlify. Netlify is a bit low level unless they have improved, but unless they have improved, it is not good. Hello, sir. Do we use MongoDB as our database or can? Okay. I know you people want to use Lovable. That's why you're mentioning Superbase. I know you people. But please just stick to what you have learned. Otherwise, what have you been doing all along, studying in a class in Manstack? Yet, you're going to do something that I've not taught you. You see, you wasted your own time. I'm not going to control what kind of project you're going to do. People are going to do blockchain, people are going to do this, that, and bring it here. No. But you see, your final project, let me give you a secret. Your final project is what you're going to use to actually place some of you in certain kind of jobs. Okay, you're in Manstack class. You're graduating a certificate saying that you did Manstack. And then your project is saying that you did blockchain. Now, what are we going to put you in a job environment? You see, you're confusing yourself. You're confusing yourself because we are graduating with a certificate saying Manstack, full stack development man. And then the project is saying something else. So we are trying to place you somewhere, and then you're trying to negotiate a job While your certificate is saying this and your project is saying this. So please, okay, let me answer some of them. So we will split our initial assignment into two folders. Yep, yes, Evelyn. If NoSQL was there, it's not going to be called Manstack. Trust me, MongoDB is going to be very simple for you. You see, right now you are struggling, but please, okay, for now, please just stick to Manstack for some reason. When you are going out there, please do everything. For me, I know how to do my SQL. I've done PostgreSQL for the longest. Spobase is my best friend. Like I've done it a lot. MongoDB, I just teach it, but I love it because it is. I'm going to spin a project very fast with it. I have CQL. For those who don't know CQL, CQL is called Cassandra Query Language. Don't know why it is not bringing it. No, Cassandra, yeah. Cassandra Query Language is the one being used in Apache. So I know a lot of database configuration and languages, but for now I'm free to use them. For now you're learning Manstack, use what is there in Manstack. Somebody's saying, Angela is saying, I already have a project, and the project is part of what I use for pitching in the pitch deck in startup developer class. Okay, the only problem is that the project is bigger than I and my team, who is a pro in UI UX, trying to create the UI and make the journey. I hope to at least uh, be before that deadline. Just like, amazing. For those who want to join Angela's team, find her behind the tent. Please, sir. Will we we will like at least okay, I'm going to package that. If you want projects that align to the SDGs that we normally talk about, I'm going to align that and give it to you for your choice. But if you're expecting a to-do list in there, sorry. Okay, what are people saying here? Let me disable this Q&A so that I can read. Bring all the questions that you have. I'm here to answer them. For those who need recap for Git Talk, I've shared the link. Uh, Remember to add your repo to the document. No, that is for recording. I'm going to bring another one for repos. So you're allowed to use TypeScript. Do you mean if I want to deploy, I will use my own Git repo, then submit the assignment? For foreign projects, please don't. Okay, if you want to, but if you want to deploy, you cannot use organization account. I'm saying that. So what are you going to do? Fork the project. Fork the repo to your own account so that you can be able to deploy within your own account. That is the simple thing that I can tell you. And you can just submit the one on GitHub and come back. Or if you don't want to submit, you can just create a whole project inside your account and then submit it to LMS, because submission is counted not inside the GitHub account for man, but it's counted inside the LMS. So you can do it inside your own account. If I were you, every project that you have submitted, every project that you have submitted, go and trace it, find it, fork it to make sure that it is within your account for documentation of your journey. Hey, what if I have a final project that is based on Manstack, and at some point, that is fine actually. AI engine, that is fine. Yeah, there's a job training before graduation, actually, whereby the talent department is going to take you through a month of training to make sure that you are well aligned in terms of job preparation. So there is one before graduation. Graduation is on December, if I'm not wrong, but I'm not so sure. Speculative though. Anyway, thank you, guys. I think we should be able to part off now. I'm going to be sharing the necessary recording, package everything that needs to be packaged in time. Let us prepare for the afternoon class. It's going to be short as this one because we are going to be doing testing and debugging with an already made project. For those who want to do Django, please. Why are you doing Django and yet you are studying man? Okay, let me tell you. For those who are in Kenya, oh, okay, for those who are sitting for their final exams, maybe who you are studying maybe a degree for pharmacy, then you're doing a final project for what? Engineering? Are you seeing? I know you are enthusiast for Django, but please do what you are learning. That's how you are going to know that. Okay, I'm going to ask that. Don't know, Angela. I'm going to pass that through the chain to make sure that we have all that. Okay. Anyway, if there are no more questions, allow me to end the session. Any feedback? They are still processing that, so we are going to have that. Anyway, bye bye. You guys have a great afternoon. Have an early lunch. Digest fast. We go and have a 1 hour or 1.5 hours in the afternoon. Then we are going to call it a session. Yeah, today's session is going to be very simple. Like it's not compulsory for every project. What I just need to tell you people, please make sure you write code bases that are security proof. Like if they need be right try catch block, make sure you separate your files, put everything together that it needs to be placed together, then everything is going to be fine. Anyway, you guys, see you guys in the afternoon. Bye bye.